The Stack is a podcast directed at IT professionals. We'll deliver frank discussion on best practice for everything from break-fix and remote management to cybersecurity and billing. We'll talk about the difficulties faced by IT companies, including the minutia of increasing performance and deliverable efficiency. We'll explore the partnerships and synergies that work well for industry professionals. What's the best way to think, plan, and action a solution? Find out here at the MSP Stack with your host, David Papp. Welcome to this, the first episode of the MSP Stack. Whether you're a small independent MSP or part of a larger team, your stack is a fundamental part of your daily life. On this podcast, we'll be talking to industry professionals and experienced IT leaders about their personal vision on the perfect stack and the tools that they rely on every day to improve the working lives of their teams and clients. Whether we're talking about quality of life software for clients like Microsoft 365, or we're talking about security detection, response, and recovery solutions, the Stack is a part of everything we do. As we kick off this podcast, we'll be looking to our guest host, David Papp, a 25-year veteran of the IT industry, to guide us and provide insight during interviews with MSP providers like you. Between David's deep experience in the IT world and his profound love of the IT industry and the people in it, we're sure that there'll be some great episodes to come.
Hey, David, how's it going? And welcome.
Hey, thanks. This is great. I'm totally looking forward to this new podcast series.
What is it about IT and the MSP world that has made you interested in hosting this podcast?
I'm super passionate about everything technology. And the reason for that is because it's always something new. It's constantly changing. It's constantly evolving. And I'm also starting to notice some patterns, being in the industry for over 25, 30 years, you're starting to see these cycles of, from clients to servers, back to clients focus as an example. Back in the day, there was no connectivity. I ran bulletin board systems, then this internet thing came, what we used to do with life before Google. Now that we've got Google out there and everybody's got smartphones, it's basically like this super awesome, Star Trek tricorder. It's like this magic box that has all the answers, and we all walk around with one of these boxes. In fact, I don't even know why they call it a smartphone anymore, because nobody uses it as a phone. It's all about the apps. It's all about the technology. And honestly, if people are not excited about what we have right now and the life and the conveniences and where we're at, think about where we're headed, because honestly, technology is exploding right now. It's not growing linearly, it's exploding exponentially. And this really, really excites me.
That's awesome, David. So tell me what you're hoping to get out of the podcast, and what are you hoping that the listeners get from it?
There's this notion that I wrote in my book years ago about calling peeking in different boxes, getting to look inside a box. What do I mean by that? Well, for one thing, the reason there's a benefit to working with an MSP in the first place is they are IT professionals who get to peek inside different boxes. They get to see what other businesses are doing, what other organizations have implemented, what technologies facilitate and help those companies run their businesses, generate more revenue, generate opportunities and leads. So, honestly, technology it's got its fingers into every other vertical market out there. It's got subspecializations in law, in medicine, in engineering, in architecture, in everyday life. You're going to see tech. And so the reason that this podcast specifically is great, because if you're an IT professional, you're somebody who gets to peek in these different boxes, and you get to look at what these other organizations, and you get to, act as a consultant, act as their technology advisor. The problem is you don't actually get to see in other MSP boxes. to me, that's the key. We want to go and get some ideas here on what are other MSP organizations running for their technology stack. And this is the stuff that they use as their internal tools in order to help do remote management of the workstations, in order to go and make sure we have cybersecurity going. We have to make sure we facilitate any kind of proactive monitoring, when you reactive, your backup strategy, all of that stuff. They don't necessarily get to see what the other MSPs are running. And this podcast is totally going to open that up. We're going to get to see in other MSP boxes, not just what their clients are using, but what they're using for their own heavy duty tools.
That's a really interesting perspective. But when we use the term the stack, it's kind of a ubiquitous term. What are the kinds of things that would impact the choices of different software solutions that an MSP stack would use?
This is huge. We're talking about things like scalability, your costs. If you're just starting out and you're just a small little one-man show, or you're a 5-man shop when you're, doing technology consulting and tech support for different organizations, you might be limited to, strict cash flow problems because it's money directly out of your jeans. So you might have some homemade solutions. You might be running your own servers. You might have I always jokingly say your own server room, which is your broom closet. And you've got some old PCs in there that are running stuff. And that might have impacted your choice early on. But now we're really starting to see this move of going to the cloud, getting current. And what that does when we break away from legacy infrastructure and legacy, solutions and services, the cloud is really opening up a massive amount of integration possibilities and APIs, and where software can talk to each other, and you've got these different third-party pieces of software. You can have a centralized dashboard. You can measure your KPIs. It can proactively tell you, hey, your backups are running, and by the way, here's your RMM agent that you can go and use to batch deploy the latest updates or the latest piece of software that you want to move out from your stack to all of your clients. Like, honestly, the choices and the options are really, how do you scale? What does it integrate with? What is that going to cost? Not just as an ongoing setup cost and training cost to get people onboarded, but what are your ongoing costs and what kind of commitments do you need to have for that? But honestly, like, the stack when it comes to IT support and MSPs is something that you should be constantly reevaluating, taking a look at what other companies are doing, what are other organizations, other ITs support and MSPs, and considering, what, should I be updating my stuff now or not? I mean, it always seems monumental. You're always very concerned on, oh boy, I don't want to do this. It's a lot of work. I'm busy right now just firefighting and keeping my business alive. But really, I've found that it pays off in spades when you actually make that move, you make that commitment, you say, I'm going to upgrade this portion of my stack. And this makes me more modern. This makes me more scalable. And my favorite word, this is future proofing.
Hey, is there something that we've missed? Something that your team is really on top of? Or did you figure out a best practice that the world should know about? Go to the mspstack.com and be a guest. We would love to talk to you.
Oh, that's super interesting. But let me ask you, what are you personally hoping to get from your involvement with this podcast?
Learning from other podcast guests when we're, getting to peek inside their boxes, to me, that is really what it comes down to. It's the new ideas, new ways of how to tackle the latest tech challenges that you're running on when you want to run your business, you want to support larger clients, more diverse clients, different vertical markets. Maybe there's pieces of software that you've never even heard of. You're like, oh my gosh, that is such a great, piece of software that exists in the cloud or whatever, or integrations that I never thought of putting it in this way, never thought of deploying it that way, never thought of integrating it that way. And what you're going to see is we're going to get that feeling of passion from all the different MSPs that we interview in terms of how they deploy their stack, where that came from, where they'd like to be, and maybe any shortfalls of what they have on their current stack. And And honestly, like, we're going to feed off of the excitement of these other MSPs in terms of going, this is some piece of software that I love, not because it's complicated and not because it's integrated, but because of its sheer simplicity. And it doesn't require any onboarding or training for me to deploy it out to my level 1 or level 2 technicians, or to my frontline staff, or to my help desk, or to whatever it may be. Like, honestly, I'm super excited to get a feeling and peek inside the boxes of all these other MSPs and see what is it that these guys are running for their stack, and what do they love and hate with regards to the solutions that they've chosen.
Awesome. Well, I'm really looking forward to this season of the Stack, and it sounds like you're pretty excited for it too.
Absolutely. This is super exciting. Loving this new podcast series, and I think everyone is going to really enjoy getting to peek and take a look at what are other MSPs running, what even solutions exist, because honestly, it's impossible to even know everything that is out there. All the different solutions. Every time I go and run a Google search, that's a verb now. We always say, let me Google that. It's enlightening to see what shows up in those search result terms, because a lot of times you're so busy running your business that you don't have a lot of time to put into what I call research and development.
And that brings us to you. If you're an owner-operator of an IT MSP business, we'd love to have you on the show. Simply visit the mspstack.com and click on the Be a Guest button. Tell us a little about yourself and your operation, and our producers will get in touch to schedule an interview, so you too can be a part of the Stack. The Stack is made possible through the generous support of MSP Corp.